Dory OMara. I own quite a bit of property here in Keene.
Could you give your address, please?
326 Matthews Road in Swansea. As you know, I own properties on both sides of Central Square. I have to go back and forth the common, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a day. I've had to walk by the chalkings for a couple years now, on and off, whenever they get inspired or there's nothing else to do. Recently, it got personal. They wrote on the monument, and I find that personal. And if there's anyone in this room that doesn't, I'm ashamed of them. That monument does not promote war. That monument is there for us to remember those that have fallen before us, to give us the rights that we so proudly want now. So to allow the chalking is not freedom of speech. Steve Lindsay mentioned the yellow ribbons, the political people standing in the square for all kinds of uses. That's very true. The Occupy King group is out there each week. They take their signs home with them. When they leave our square, those gentlemen pack up their stuff and kindly go across the street, and they put their signs in their cars and they go. They're not signs of anyone's private parts. They're not swastikas. They're no Nazi sayings. They're not racial slurs. These are people that are holding the signs that they believe in. They come, they dedicate a couple hours a week to what they believe in, but they take it home with them. My tenants, which I have many on the square, the common is their backyard, essentially. They should be able to bring their children to our common, to the downtown, without seeing all of this stuff. Do I think we need another law? No, probably not. But for the better of our community right now, yes, we do. And we should revisit it, you know, because with any luck, 5 years from now, we won't have that group from here. They won't live here anymore because they've just moved on to something bigger and better in their lives, or maybe get a job. But
Okay,
seriously,
I just want to keep the group, this group, that group. I mean, I try to allow a little, just a second. I just want to make sure it doesn't happen again. I've tried to let people stray a bit, and I think you've got your point across, but I'm going to ask you to focus on whether or not you support. This committee recommended to the full city council the researching of the possibility of an enforceable graffiti ordinance, and why you do or do not.
absolutely. Because your children, my children, all of their children should be able to walk through the park. And it's not about hopscotch. Because if we want our kids to play hopscotch, they can do it in our driveways. They can do it on their, you know, their own sidewalks in front of their homes, where their neighbors know their children and think that it's cute and might even join in to play. But that's not hopscotch on Central Square. I mean, now all of a sudden there's hopscotch, you know, once a day on Central Square, but there never has been a big hopscotch community. So all of our downtown needs to be protected, not just the common. You know, the main salon had a swastika outside. You know, just because it's chalk doesn't mean it's not graffiti. Graffiti is there somewhere described that graffiti can only be written in spray paint? It's graffiti if it's offensive, it's destroying public property. If it's insulting people and hurting our community and the people that are traveling here. You know, one woman spoke of a group of folks that came from a different country that were here this past weekend. I saw them too. And they were from Germany. And they were absolutely disgusted by our Central Square. They couldn't believe that they came to Keene, and of all the places in the world that they came, that he and his partner walked out to the common and saw a swastika. That's not what we're about. We're a good community. We're full of good people. We're all like family, whether we know each other or not. I encourage you to please pass the ordinance or make the motion to research an ordinance. Please make a motion to research an ordinance for us. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Dr. Sean Filio of Keene, New Hampshire. One of the arguments raised tonight has centered around the issue of free speech and whether a proposed ordinance with regards to graffitiing would be an impingement upon the First Amendment. It is unfortunate, but perhaps rather telling, that those individuals who have brought up the First Amendment have failed to bring up the 225 years of case law that our nation's top legal scholars, the Supreme Court, have done regarding that amendment. So let's take a look at the 1989 case, Ward versus Rock against Racism. That case, which has been reaffirmed timeless times now, has suggested that freedom to speech is not a panacea. Instead, there are reasonable restrictions that a state or city government may place against the freedom of speech so as to achieve a reasonably tailored and legitimate public interest. In particular, in the case, 4 criteria were raised as to whether a state restriction of freedom of speech will be legal. It must be content neutral, narrowly tailored, serve a significant government interest beyond simply wanting to restrict speech, and leave open alternative channels for communication. Now let's examine these with respect to a proposed ordinance. It would be content neutral. The person who says, "I love City Hall," would be just as guilty of an offense as the person who says, "I hate City Hall," as would the person who draws the hopscotch square, as the person who decides to write their number on Central Square as a means of singles dating. Whatever it may be, that person would be an offense. It doesn't matter what you're saying. Now let's look at whether there's a legitimate government interest here. This city's greatest resource is at Central Square. Indeed, we know that our downtown area brings millions of dollars of tourism each year. Moreover, it is a place where people go to shop, people go to dine, and people live. There is a significant economic interest in preserving the downtown area that people want to go to shop, to dine, to stay, and to live. Thus, arguments saying that the city council has something better to do, I would suggest, are not accurate. There is nothing more important for this council to do than protect one of the city's top economic interests. So, is there a legitimate public interest here? Yes. As we've had other people say tonight, people are feeling uncomfortable going to the downtown area. They feel intimidated. It's not a place where they want to go alone. It is not a place where they want to bring their children. There is an interest in wanting to preserve a downtown area in which people feel free to go. Now, is this narrowly tailored? Absolutely. There have been false arguments tonight that this is a ban on hopscotch. Indeed, we saw outside at chalking on the sidewalk saying, "Don't make hopscotch illegal." That's reductio ad absurdum. It's not illegal. You're not making hopscotch illegal. You're drawing a hopscotch square on city property in a historic district that has a prime economic interest illegal. If the children want to play hopscotch, draw it in their driveway. Draw it at Wheelock Park. Go up to Robin Hood. Draw hopscotch there. Go to the places that are designated for that type of recreation. Don't do it in an economic area. Would we put a child in handcuffs? I doubt this is going to be an ordinance where we're going to throw somebody into jail. As we've said, this is an ordinance that is only proposed. We're going to look at the enforcement. Are we going to bring out the handcuffs? No. Are we going to bring out the ticket book and fine somebody? Probably. So the mental images of locking up a child need to be eliminated immediately. They're not true, and they're merely tools to try to evoke emotions that have no place here. Is this narrowly tailored? Will speech still be legal in the downtown area? Absolutely. This is not a ban on total speech. It is not a draconian, downtown shall be a silenced area. Are other manners of speech available in downtown? Yes. You can bring down your sign. For the artist that wants to have their art admired downtown, why don't they bring their own chalkboard easel downtown, draw it, be admired, and at the end of the day, they take the work to remove their art, rather than using city property and city money to remove the art. So, we have a legitimate public interest. We have a content-neutral legislation. It is narrowly tailored, and there are other means available for communication. Thus, is this legal within the Supreme Court language of the First Amendment? Absolutely. Thus, the issues of free speech do not belong in this argument unless you wish to argue with the Supreme Court resolution on this matter. Now, ironically, if you were to go to Washington to try to picket the Supreme Court on this issue, you're welcome to hold a sign, but you better not to graffiti on the sidewalk in front of the Supreme Court, because a valid ordinance in Washington, D.C. makes that illegal. Isn't that ironic? That before the Supreme Court, our nation's top arbiters of what is constitutional or not, you can't graffiti. I'd say that we should follow the example of the Supreme Court rather than misguided notions of what is within the First Amendment. Thank you.
I'm assuming there are 2 people here to speak for the first time and 2 more to speak for the second time, and that will be it.
I'd like to speak once as well.
Okay, then please stand behind the man with the Dream Team t-shirt. Sir? And that will be it for public comment for this evening.
Good evening, my name is Raphael Hernandez and I live by the square. I've been living in Keene, New Hampshire like for about a year. And when I came to this city, I actually was running away from places where destruction and stuff like this happen often. I support the ordinance for the city.
It's not an ordinance.
Well,
yeah.
the research
Okay.
of the ordinance.
Well, I'll let it go. We all know what we're talking about,
I
even though
reword
we're going to
it.
say it differently.
Right. The research for the
We're on the same
ordinance,
page.
okay.
Thank you.
For the fact that I believe in freedom of speech, okay, but I utilize my voice to make points. I don't need to deface monuments, I don't need to deface the ground, or utilize other means. That's why I have a voice for, and I could express my point and get my point across. Whoever wants to hear it, fine. If he doesn't, that's perfect. But why should I deface a place where it's utilized to pay respect to those people that have fought for my freedom of speech? If you don't have any other means in which, if you're afraid to talk, or, well, write on a piece of paper or something, but why destroy, even if it's just for a little bit of time, deface something that other people have worked too hard to pay for? You know what I'm saying? Honestly, I wasn't one time in my life on that point, and I realized that how bad it is, because I used to do graffiti. And I came to the spot that I'm like, why am I doing this? And in reality, I was just disrespecting all my peers. It should be researched, and whoever don't want to, if it goes through, well, it goes through. So, but I think on limitations, it would be a good thing too. And thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Gibbets, Swansea, New Hampshire. Forgive me if I seem jumbled. I'm not nervous, quite honestly, I'm angry. The reason being is I too am a proud veteran, but even more so than that, I'm a prouder father. And there's not really a whole lot of things to do all the time in this area for kids. One of the things that my family and I enjoy doing is walking the streets of Main Street, is coming down to the Common. We enjoy going to the ice cream store or to the candy store and then walking through the Common and having a good time. As far as hopscotch goes, I have 2 boys. They love to play hopscotch, they love to draw. Somebody said it, there's parks for that. There's hopscotch squares, that's not what's going on here, people. We have driveways for that, communities, things like that go on. I don't know if any of you have seen any of the things that have gone on down there, seen any of the pictures or any of the drawings, but have any of you seen any of the drawings? I see yes, I see no. Could I show you a picture? I can describe it however you wish.
My concern is everybody who is here should be entitled to see it. And
I'll hold it up for everybody.
Also, there is going to be a viewing audience as well.
There is? Okay, well that's okay.
Is it obscene?
It's not obscene.
Why don't you describe it verbally then? Maybe that would be-
I'm sorry, let me pull it up again. It's a picture of a stick figure person, looks a lot like a police officer holding a billy club, and it has a bunch of smiley faces with X's in their eyes. Now, For those of you that don't know, I did work in law enforcement for combined 16 years between the military and corrections. My sons know that. They're proud of their father for that, whether some people disagree with that or not. Now, if I were to walk my boys through that square and they saw that, knowing what a police officer looks like, even if it's a stick figure drawing, how in the world am I supposed to explain to my children what's going on there? That is not right. That is not freedom of speech. That is intimidation. That is not right for little children to see and for a grown man to have to explain to his sons what's going on here. That is not freedom of speech. That is over the line. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sure. Okay, so if you and then two gentlemen for the second time, and then we will not be speaking or allowing anybody else to speak tonight, because I think everybody who's wanted to speak has had a chance at this point.
My name is Garrettian. I live at 75 Leverett here in Keene, and I'm the director of Keene Peaceful Streets here. I was involved in the Manchester case that was referenced. I was one of the Chalking 8 arrested on June 4th of 2011, and I was acquitted of all those charges. I'm a nice person, so I didn't sue the arresting officer for wrongful arrest, but many people are referencing the Manchester court case to have some significant weight. Now, that was never appealed. None of the Chalking 8 had attorneys. I represented myself in that case. On appeal, I believe that their convictions for chalking would have been thrown out. They were convicted of chalking a retaining wall at the Manchester Police Department. Now, this wall would have naturally been washed away by rain, had it rained. Instead, Manchester Police called the fire department and tried to bill the activists for the fire department using a fire truck, which was totally unnecessary. A bottle of water would have done the job. But anyway, in that case, there are other court cases which haven't been referenced, which is why I impel people, as others have, to research the court cases behind this. Russell Means, a historical activist, many people are probably familiar with from the American Indian movement. He did a demonstration one day, I believe it was on Columbus Day, where he poured fake blood on a Columbus statue. I believe he was arrested for that, and when the appeals court heard that case, that was deemed to be First Amendment protected activity because the fake blood would naturally wash away, wasn't toxic to the area, wasn't environmentally harmful. So people that are doing things that are temporary, whether or not one likes it or not, I think we should all be respectful of that, even if we disagree, and if we do want to express that we disagree, that we do so in a respectful and peaceful manner. Unfortunately, on Monday and Tuesday, there was violence that occurred in Central Square. Many people on both sides of this issue, or I'd say all sides, because I don't want to create false dichotomies, clearly are, they're shook up about what's going on. They feel like there might be some intimidation going on. And those are the sorts of things that we need to be focusing on, not theoretical ordinances that might address the issue, but instead the cultures and the attitudes that people are bringing to the table. So in having a more open dialogue with each other, I think we can address that in a better way. So this chalking ordinance, I know we don't have language yet, we don't know exactly what we're talking about yet. But if it was to apply to vertical surfaces, as I've heard KPD advise people not to chalk on vertical surfaces, I believe any that are exposed to rain on appeal would be thrown out by the courts. And in another sense, is that something the city government really should be wasting their time looking into. So I would advise against using time to research this statute. Instead, I'd advise we just research those incidents where people did do wrong to one another and try to resolve that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor O'Connor has a question. Mr. Hernandez.
Garrett, quick question. You mentioned that second court case. What state was that?
The one with the blood on the statue, I believe it was a federal appeals court. I would need to do some more research on that.
Thank you.